What's going on, everybody? It's Mr. Cruz. In this video, I'm going to show you guys how to make sheet music with this website called flat.io. That's flat.io. On my screen, I have the teacher's edition of flat.io, and what you're going to need to do first is sign up and register for flat.io. Don't worry about this class up here. This is for the teacher's edition. Sign up for flat.io using your Gmail or MyMail account, but any email account will do. The one benefit for having a Gmail account like G Suite or a Gmail linked email account is that if like I myself or another music teacher wants to combine this with Google Classroom, you're ready to go with your Gmail account. Or if I want to use this with Schoology, we're ready to go. But we're not going to be doing any of those things. Just sign up for an account, a free account, and you're all good. Other things that you're going to need are the flat.io Bass Clef PDF, because we're going to learn how to use flat.io by recreating this music here that I provided for you guys. So sign up for flat.io and then make sure you have this bass clef orchestra sheet music that I provided here. Once you're signed in, okay, you should have a section called My Library. Or a button or a link that says new score or tab. You're going to want to click that new score or tab. Okay, again, it's under My Library. Okay, and then because this is an assignment, you're going to put your name on it as the name of the score. You're just going to put your name. So I'm going to put my name plus a little bit of extra stuff. So Mr. Cruz. Bass clef orchestra. Okay, so now if you play cello or bass, these notes will work for both of you. So you're going to be in this window over here, and it's going to ask you to select an instrument and add an instrument. Let me just do cello. So I'm going to go to strings, and I'm going to hit this plus sign for cello. If you play bass, it's going to be contrabass. So I'm going to click cello, and it gets added over here to the right side, meaning that I'm going to start making parts for a cello. You can add other parts too, viola, bass, and then if you wanted to add more instruments and you wanted to arrange it, you can get the crosshairs over here and arrange the instruments in the order that you like it. Okay, so since we're not going to be using violas or contrabass, I'm going to hit those minus signs, get rid of those. Once I have my instruments up here, hit create. So let me show you the flat.io interface. If you have a smaller screen, okay, you're going to have this menu up here, and you're going to have something called document. Okay, these are your document tools such as undo, redo, copy, paste, saving, printing, zoom in, zoom out. Okay, but because my monitor is can handle a little bit of wider windows, okay, the document tools are over here now. Okay, including undo and redo. So those are your document tools. The other tools you have are your note tools, which is where you're going to spend most of your time. Your note tools include your accidentals, sharp flats and naturals, whole notes, quarter notes, half notes, eighth notes, triplets, dotted notes, transposing. You have this display more feature right here. Okay, don't worry about that. You have articulation tools such as accents, marcatos, accents, fermatas, slurs, pizzicato, arco, breath mark, that's your bow lift. What else do they have here? Staccatos, tenuto, legatos. Ornaments, we're not going to talk about ornaments, but ornaments such as tremolos, trills, glissando. We won't be talking about that. Dynamics, we're going to be talking about that here. Crescendo, diminuendo, all your dynamic markings, forte pianos, sforzandos, all that stuff. Measure tools, we're going to be talking about that, how to insert measures, how to do what's called a system break. A system break is when you want a specific number of measures in a system. So right here in this PDF that I provided, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 systems of music. Okay, you're probably wondering how come you don't just call them lines. Well, we want to make sure that we're not confusing what lines are, because we already have bar line, measure line, ledger line, staff line. Okay, so we don't want to confuse all our line terms. So these are called systems. So we're going to be talking about that, system breaks. In the measure tools, you have your clef changes, key signature change, time signature, rehearsal marks, repeat signs, double bar lines, measure repeat signs, coda signs, DS, DCL coda, first and second endings, accelerandos, retardandos. And then the last tool that you have are your text tools. That's for putting in lyrics, for like maybe writing for a choir, chords, chord symbols, and annotations. For example, if I wanted to add all this workflow stuff here that I wrote, you can add that. That would be under annotations, but we're not going to be dealing with that. So that is these are your main menus in flat.io. Okay, again, your document tools are up here if your screen is wide enough. Something else that's really important in flat.io is this teardrop right here. Okay, there's this teardrop icon or cursor. It's very important that you keep track of where that is, because if you want to make a change to your staff or to your notes, you got to make sure that that teardrop is where you need it to be, so that the changes apply to where that teardrop is. Okay, as I'm doing this, I might make a couple of mistakes because my teardrop cursor is not in the right spot. You can move the teardrop cursor by using the arrow keys on your keyboard. Move them left and right. Okay, again, I use the arrow keys, left and right arrow keys on my keyboard to toggle or move them to the left or to the right. What else? I think that's basically it. So we can get started. You should have the Advanced Orchestra Bass Clef sheet. Let's look at this sheet right here that I provided for you. You are going to recreate this, all this music here on flat.io. And when you do music notation software like this, it's very important that you have a workflow. Because if you're just thinking about all these things off the top of your head, you might forget certain symbols, you'll forget specific concepts, and you don't want to forget those things. Okay, so we have a workflow for putting all this stuff in. So we are going to talk about key signature and time signature, pitches, rhythms, repeats, dynamic symbols, crescendos, diminuendos, articulation, bow direction, slurs, and then how to print and save your work. Now, this is a very long video, but if you get the hang of this and you're like, hey, I know how to do pitches and rhythms already, I just want to learn how to do the repeats. Okay, go to the description below and then look at the timestamp for repeats, and then just fast forward to that time, and you will get right to the repeats. Let's see. So let's get started. So first things first, we're at the beginning. We're going to start a new file. Bass players, this is going to be the same. So you could have just picked bass or contrabass on flat.io. In the beginning, we need to set up our key signature and time signature. Okay, so our key signature is 1 flat. Okay, 1 flat, and we need to put that right here in flat.io. So there's 2 ways to put in a key signature. First way is to click your mouse between the time signature and the clef. Okay, and then select the 1 flat, and there you go. All right. Another way to do that is to be in the measure tools. Click measure up here. Go to key signature. That's these 4 sharps. Click on that, and then you could change the key signature here. Okay, so let's say I wanted 6 flats. There you go. All right. Click the measure tool again. Go to a key signature. Let's go back to 1 flat. Okay, so now you know 2 ways to change the key signature. The time signature is the same way. You can hover your cursor, your mouse cursor over the time signature, and you can change the time signature here. Let's say you wanted 6/8 time. Okay. Change it back to 4/4. And by the way, the music we're recreating is in 4/4 time, so we really don't need to change this. You can change the time signature by going to your measure tools again and going to the time signature tool. Click that, and you can change your time signature here. If you wanted cut time, okay. But let's change it back to 4/4 time. So that's key signature and time signature. The tempo, don't worry about the tempo. That's always going to be on your flat.io assignments or your projects. So don't worry about the tempo right now. Okay. Next is pitches and rhythm. Pitches and rhythm go kind of work together on flat.io. And this is where you're going to be spending most of your time. And it's in the note section. The note tools is where you're going to be spending most of your time. So pitches and rhythm only is what we're going to be putting into our flat.io score. And we only want to focus on notes and rhythm. Don't worry about bow direction, slurs, staccatos, note length, or anything like that. We just want to focus on pitches and rhythms. We'll get to those things later. Okay, so first note is a D. D whole note. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be in my note tool section. Click on that. And then I'm going to pick a whole note here. And I'm going to click the D into the staff. Okay. There's another way to put the note into the staff is click whole note here and then actually press the letter D on your computer keyboard. Okay. The only drawback and limitation with typing it in the computer keyboard is that sometimes the D or whatever letter you put in appears in the wrong octave in the staff. So I prefer to just click the note into the staff myself. Okay. So yeah, first note D. Next note, an E half note and an F half note. So click the half note up here, E, and an F. All right. Next, we got some quarter notes. All right, and you'll notice that the teardrop is moving over. Okay, so if the teardrop is here and I want to put a G. Okay, teardrops here, put the G on there. Okay, teardrops here, put the A. Teardrops over here, put B flat. And then C. Okay, so that's the first line of the music. Now a fourth measure is showing up here, and we don't want the fourth measure showing up here. We want measure 4 going into the next line. So since I want this measure going into the next system or line, I'm going to highlight and make sure my teardrop is here on beat 1. Go to my measure tool and then click on system break. And this measure 4 will show up in the second line or the second system. There you go. Now measure 4 is in the second system, just like the sheet music that is provided for you. Okay, moving on. Back to the note tools. 8th note, high D. High C, 8th note. I'm still in 8th notes. Next is 4 16th notes, B flat A G F. and just click them in. B flat. Now, I can't put a note here on this 16th rest. I can't put a note here because the cursor is not there. Okay, so you got to make sure the cursor moves over. You can move the cursor by using your arrow keys. Okay, or you could just click on that area first. Usually after you put a note, the teardrop cursor moves. Next is E and C sharp. E and C sharp. Okay, now that is coming out as a C natural. Okay, we want this to be a C sharp like this. C sharp, this needs to be C sharp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the cursor over. All right, I just clicked on the note so that the cursor, the teardrop cursor is on the C. And then I'm going to go to my note tools and click on sharp. And the C became C sharp because number one, the teardrop cursor is on top of the C. And because I clicked a sharp. Okay. If my teardrop was somewhere else and I clicked the sharp accidental, all right, wherever that teardrop is going to affect that note. Next measure is a D whole note. So I need to move my cursor over to the next measure. Okay, that D is going to be on beat 1. I'm going to put the D in there. Okay. Next measure is an 8th note followed by 2/16. So I'm going to click 8th note, D, 2/16 notes, E and F, quarter note G, 2/16 notes followed by 8th note, that's A, B flat, C sharp. So 2/16 notes. Click the 16th notes here under the tool section, tool menu. Click 16th notes under the note tools menu. That's A, B flat. Now it's automatically B flat because of the key signature, 1 flat, B flat. So that's automatically B flat. You don't need to put a flat sign on that note anymore because of your key signature. After B flat is C sharp, 8th note C sharp. Make sure my cursor is in the right spot. 8th note C sharp. Now that's coming out of C natural, so I'm going to move my cursor over. Okay, highlight the C with my cursor with the teardrop. Click sharp, and that C gets activated as C sharp. Move my cursor over again. We need to put a high D over here. Okay. Measure 7 is over here. Measure 7. We need measure 7 to go to the 3rd line. So how do we do that? Make sure that this is selected. The first note or first rest of measure 7 is selected. Go to your measure tool and click on system break. Now we have 1, 2, 3 measures. 1, 2, 3 measures in the second system. Measure 7, we're going to start measure 7. And by the way, if you make a mistake, you have your undo button up here. Okay, you have undo over here, measure at the top under your document tools, you have undo. And you can always do Command Z or Apple Z on your Mac or Control Z on a PC or Chromebook to undo your last most recent change. And I'm going to be doing that frequently on here. Okay, so now we're on measure 7. We need to put 8th note triplets. So how do we do that? Okay, first select 8th note, click into high D in the staff. All right, next we need to put this cursor, we need to move the teardrop underneath the high D. Okay, and we need to turn that into an 8th note triplet. So make sure the cursor is under your high D. Go to the note tools. Click on the tuplet icon, which is this one with the 3 and brackets around it. And click on the 3. And now your measure is set up for 8th note triplets here. So let's start clicking in. Let's start clicking in C sharp and B flat. Let's put C sharp here. Move the cursor over. And B flat. Now we need to change this C to C sharp. So I'm going to move my cursor, the teardrop over to the C, and click sharp under the note tools. C sharp. This is already B flat because of the key signature, 1 flat. Next, we want to put an A, G, and F. A, G, F, eighth note triplets. So let's start with A here. A. Highlight the A with the teardrop. Highlight the A with the teardrop. Click on the triplets, the tuplet tool, and click on the 3. All right. Move the cursor over. Eighth notes. Select eighth notes under notes, note tools, G and F. Next, we need to throw in a quarter note E and a quarter note F. So that's measure 7 with eighth note triplets. Next is measure 8, dotted quarter notes followed by eighth notes. Okay, so let's click on quarter note first. That's going to be D here. We need to make this a dotted quarter note D. So I'm going to move the teardrop over to the D. Okay, the D is highlighted, the D is selected. I'm going to go to the dot and click single dot right here. Not double dots, just dot. Okay. Afterwards, we need to put an eighth note E. So click eighth note under your note tools. Click the E over here, or sorry, click the eighth note and then put the E in. Next, quarter note. Select quarter note first and then put in the F natural. We need this F to be a dotted quarter note. So select the F with the teardrop. Move the teardrop cursor over underneath the F. Now that the F is selected, go to your dots, single dot. After that, we have an eighth note. We have an eighth note G. So click eighth note, put in the G. Okay, so that's measure 8. Measure 9, it's just quarter notes. A, B natural, C sharp, and D. Okay, so I'm going to click quarter note over here. Under my note tools, I'm going to click quarter note and type in A, B, C sharp, D. Now that all didn't work right. Okay, so this is B flat and C natural. We need to change these. So I'm going to move my cursor over to the B flat. It's B flat because of the key signature, 1 flat. Move this B flat, or highlight the B flat and go to natural so that that's B natural. Move the cursor over to C. We need this to be C sharp. Okay, so the cursor or the teardrop is under the C, and click sharp. And there's C sharp and then D. Measure 10. Okay, measure 10 is over here. Okay, but we want measure 10 to be underneath measure 7. Okay, we want measure 10 to be underneath measure 7. So we need to do another system break. Select anything from measure 7, or sorry, select anything from measure 10 with the cursor or the teardrop icon. Go to measure and then click on system break. Measure 10. Let's throw the notes in. That's high D, C natural, and B flat. D, C natural, B flat. Okay, now I forgot one huge important thing is to change the time signature in measure 10. If you noticed, measure 10 is in 3/4 time now. Okay, so I'm going to put the teardrop right here in the beginning of measure 10. I'm going to go to measure tool and then click on time signature and click on 3/4 time. And there you go. Measure 10 is now in 3/4 time. We just inserted a time signature change. Okay, let's move the cursor over. All right, so it appears I ran out of measures. So I'm in my measure tool and I'm going to do this. Insert measure after. Click that a couple of times, maybe 3 times. All right, so that takes care of the rest of the measures in my song. That's measure 11, 12, and 13. So after measure 10, we got to throw in these dotted eighth notes followed by 16th notes. Okay, so back to flat.io. Go to notes, click eighth note, and A. Okay, move the cursor over to the A, the teardrop. Go to your dot tools, click the dot. Move the cursor over to the 16th rest here, and let's add in a 16th note G. Go back to eighth notes. In your note tools, go back to eighth notes and click in an F. This F needs to be dotted. Okay, so we highlighted the F with the cursor, with the teardrop cursor, and then we went to the dot and selected the dot. Okay, after the dotted eighth note F is an E 16th note. Okay, now something happened here because the cursor wasn't moved over. So what I did was I changed it. So if you make a mistake like this, hit Command Z or Apple Z for Macs, or Control Z for PC or Chromebook. Or you can go up here to the undo under the document tools, click undo, and it makes it back into a dotted eighth note. Now, like I said earlier, I wanted to put a 16th note E over here. So if I want to put a 16th note E, I got to move the teardrop underneath this. Click 16th note and then E. Okay. Over here, I want to put a quarter note D. So I'm going to click quarter note and click in the D. Okay, that's measure 11. Measure 12 is eighth note, eighth rest, eighth note, eighth rest, eighth note, eighth rest. Okay, so I'm going to click on eighth notes. Again, I'm in my note tools. Click on eighth note and put in a D. This is already an eighth rest. Okay, this is also already an eighth rest. So I need to move the cursor over here so I can start putting changes on beat 2. Okay, click eighth note, click F. All right, and then there's your eighth rest already, right here and right here. Move the teardrop over to beat 3. Click eighth note, and then put in an A, because that's A over here. And then there's your eighth rest. Then the last note is a high D. Okay, that's on the last measure. We're going to put it over here. So I'm going to move the cursor over, the cursor or the teardrop over here, and click in a high D quarter note. Select quarter note and D. And then we are done. We are done putting in note names and rhythms for bass clef instruments. All right, so that takes care of pitches and rhythms. You need to proofread and make sure everything matches. Okay. Okay, next is repeat signs. Okay, we have a repeat sign over here between measure 4 and the end of measure 5. Okay, so how do we do that? So we move our teardrop over here to measure 4. Okay, I simply did that by clicking on the note and the teardrop goes there. All right, go to measure tools and click on left repeat. Now the program is not perfect. It's putting the repeat sign in the wrong spot. Okay, there's nothing I could do about that. The repeat sign is supposed to go after the after the key signature. Okay, but there's your repeat sign. It's good enough for right now. And then the closing repeat, or the right-sided repeat, is after the D whole note. So I'm going to select D whole note. There's my cursor or teardrop. And then I'm going to make sure that I'm in my measure tools and then click on right repeat. And it puts the repeat sign there. Okay. Let's see. Are there any more repeats? No, there aren't any more repeats. Let's move on. Next are dynamic cymbals. Okay. Dynamic cymbals are our fortes, pianos, forte, and mezzo forte. So we have 4 dynamic cymbals to put in. Again, you got to make sure that if you want your forte symbol to be under the first note, we select the first note, make sure the teardrop is there in the right spot, click dynamic, and then click forte. And there's forte right there. Now you've noticed that there's a number next to forte, number 6. You can also, let me undo that, Apple Z or Command Z or Control Z on the PC. You can go with dynamics, all right? And if you press the number 6 on your computer keyboard, that's the one above the letters T and Y on your computer keyboard, not the number pad 6. That's something else, okay? If you press number 6, that's going to throw in the forte symbol. And there you go, okay? Next is the piano after the repeat sign, okay? That's in measure 6. Let's move the teardrop over here to measure 6 and put in piano. You can either press the P for piano or hit the number 3 that's above the letters W or E. Okay, and then there's the piano symbol right there. Measure 7. Measure 7 is forte. The beginning is forte, so I'm going to click this because I want the forte symbol to be on this F, or sorry, on this D over here. Click forte, and there it is. Measure 8, the dotted quarter note. Measure 8, dotted quarter note is mezzo forte. The cursor is there, the teardrop is there. Click mezzo forte. All right. And that is that for dynamic symbols. Next, it's time to throw in the crescendo and diminuendo lines, the greater than or less than signs. Okay, so we have a crescendo here in measure 6. So I'm going to click on this right here, the first note of measure 6, and I'm going to put crescendo in, press it in. Okay. So there's your crescendo. If you can select the crescendo with your mouse, and you'll notice that there are these circles. Okay, those are your handles to adjust the length or width of your crescendo. So if I click on the handle here, the circle, and drag, I can make my crescendo for a half a measure or the full measure. Okay. Another thing you'll notice is that if I tried to collide the crescendo into the piano marking here, it's not going to allow me. So if I let go, it stops right there before the P, the piano symbol. Okay. You can also crescendo for a long time. So check out this really long crescendo. I can just drag all over the place. Okay, but I just want my crescendo to end right here at the end of measure 6. We have a diminuendo between this forte and this mezzo forte here. So I'm going to click on this high D so that my teardrop is there. And then I'm going to click on diminuendo. Again, the diminuendo has handles, these little circles. Click on it, drag, and you can adjust how much you want it to diminuendo. All right. So that's crescendo and diminuendo marks. Okay, next is articulation. Okay. What you're going to do is go to articulation menu here, the articulation tools in flat.io, and we're going to first do staccatos. Okay, we're going to first do staccatos and accents. Okay, so at measure 9, we have some staccatos here. So I'm going to move my cursor over to measure 9. There's my teardrop cursor. Move it over to measure 9. And then we're going to put in staccatos. So I'm looking for staccatos. Where did it go? Where did it go? Okay, so it's probably under display more. So if you have these 3 dots, look for staccato, and there it is. So once my note is selected and the teardrop is underneath the note that I want changed, I hit staccato, and there it goes. It pops up right there. I'm going to use the arrow keys on my keyboard to move the teardrop to the next note. And I'm going to hit staccato again. use the right arrow key to move the teardrop to the C sharp. Okay. Staccato, since we're already in the articulation menu, staccato is number 1. That's the key right above the Q on your keyboard. Okay, so the teardrop is right here under C sharp. It's already selected. If I press 1, there's the staccato. Okay, so now you have 2 ways of inserting a staccato. Make sure you use the numbers on top of the letters on your keyboard, not the number pad. So if your keyboard has a number pad on the right side, don't use those. Okay, so and then the high D over here is also staccato. The next measure, the first 3/4 measure, is all accents. Okay, so I'm going to move the cursor or the teardrop to the high D. And here's accent right here, number 6. I can press the number 6. Okay. So I was using my keyboard there to insert the accents, and by pressing number 6. Okay. Let me undo that really quick. Here's the teardrop over the high D. Hit accent. Okay, and I was pressing the accent button up here. And then the second measure from the end, these are staccatos. So I'm going to move my cursor over here. I'm going to use my arrow keys this time. Okay, and then hit staccato. Okay. Another articulation that's in flat.io in the articulation menu is fermatas. Okay, so we have a fermata here on the very last note. So I'm going to select the last note with the teardrop. Okay. And then I can enter in fermata. And there you go. There's a fermata there on the last note. Next is bow directions. Bow directions are also under the articulation menu. Okay. So first measure, we have a down bow. So let's move my teardrop to the first measure and then down bow. Okay. The next measure is an up bow. The E is an up bow. So make sure the teardrop is underneath the E and then hit the up bow icon. Over here we have a G down bow. So the teardrop's over here on the G, hit down bow. Then we have high D up here. We have high D up here. This is going to be up bow. So all I'm doing is I'm moving the cursor to the note that I want to have a bow direction on, and then I'm clicking the bow direction. And over here, this is D, whole note D with an up bow. So the D over here is selected with the teardrop and up bow. This D eighth note right here with the piano, that's going to be down bow. Okay. And that is it for bow direction markings. Okay. The next one we're going to throw in are slurs. Okay. Slurs. We have how many sets of slurs? 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 sets of slurs in this. So we're going to go to measure 2. Make sure that my teardrop is on measure 2. And then we're going to go click the slur icon right here. Now by default, when you slur on flat.io, it always slurs to the next note. Okay, so my E is selected here. I'm going to click slur. And then your slur shows up. Okay, so we only need to slur the E to the D, or sorry, the E to the F. Okay, I hope I said that correctly. E to the F. I might have read it in treble clef a minute ago. We're going to slur E to F, and that's it. There are some limitations. Okay, for example, like last time, this repeat sign's in the wrong spot. We need this slur to be, we need that slur to be under the bow marking here, bow direction marking, but that'll do. Okay, it's not perfect. The next one is we're going to slur all 4 of these notes right here, this G to the C. Okay, so I have my teardrop icon right here under the G. G is selected, so this is where the slur is going to start. Now, we don't want to slur just to the A. We want to slur all the way to the C. And you'll notice that the slur has these circles. Those are handles. You can select, you can click on the circle and drag it all the way to the C. And now you're slurring all 4 notes. Again, this is not the way a slur is supposed to look like. Okay, the slur goes underneath the bow direction markings like this one right here. Okay, the next set of slurs are right here in measure 9. So I'm going to move my mouse, the teardrop, over to measure 9. And I'm going to slur. Okay. We're going to slur the C sharp to the D over here. Okay. And that's done. Okay, so that's it with slurs. And then we're pretty much done. Next is to save or print your work. So if you go to your document tools, okay, mine are over here. You might have to click on document up here next to notes. Okay, you're going to find this printer icon. Yes, that's a printer. Click on that. You can click on start printing. A dialog box should appear. Okay, and then you can actually print from your computer to your printer. So I have a printer at my house. So this is going to print to my printer. I also have the option to save it as a PDF. Okay. I also have the option to save it to Google Drive. Okay. Your computer might be a little bit different. If you do have this option, this is okay. Save it to Google Drive and then share your file with me. So I have your assignment. So this is one way to save your work. I'm going to hit cancel here. Another way to save your work is to click on this cloud with a down arrow. Okay, and then click on Printable PDF. And then click on Export. And what just happened now is it's being downloaded and saved to my computer. All right, and then I can take that file, the PDF, I can take that PDF and attach it to an email and send it. Or you can attach it to your email and then send it to me. Or you can attach it as a PDF, as a file on Schoology. Okay, so you have 2 ways here to save your work. And you should already know how to submit work anyway through Schoology or email or Google Drive. So that is, you know, music notation software for you using flat.io. Hopefully after having gone through all of this, you know how to work the menus and use all the tools to put all the notes in. I understand this is a long video, so you had the option of clicking through all the timestamps that I have in the description below and fast forwarding through certain concepts. Let's see. Another cool thing that I like about music notation software is that you can always play back the work that you put in your music notation software. So if I want to play back everything, okay, I need to move my teardrop cursor to the front, to the beginning. And what we're going to do is we're going to play this for you. Let me change the tempo really quick so it doesn't take forever to play it. You can also type the number in. I'm just going to make it 120 and hit save. Okay. And then play it back. Repeat. So it's not the most gorgeous playing. It's not the most pretty or gorgeous playing, but you get the idea. One thing it didn't do was set the metronome. Playback options. Let's see. No, that's not it. Metronome. Okay, metronome has to be on. Okay. Metronome count in. Metronome on. Okay. And then hit play. Okay, so let me turn that metronome off. Okay, so with the metronome, okay, you can hear how all the beats line up. So I love music notation software. I've been using music notation software for a very long time. Let's see, since maybe I was in junior high. And I didn't have a really nice, computers were really slow back then, but you were able to connect a keyboard to your computer, and you were able to click notes into your computer back in the day with, Windows 95. Actually, quick tip, that was Windows 3.11. Yeah, this is before Windows 95, and you had music notation software like this, and you can put notes in. And I remember before, when I was in middle school, I would put the notes in in my music notation, and the computer would play it back for me. And that's how I learned how to read rhythms and learn how to carefully read accidentals and key signatures, because it would play it back for me. And if I noticed it wasn't playing correctly, I would review the music and I'd be like, oh yeah, that's why it's not playing correctly, because I missed an accidental here. So this is a great tool to teach yourself how to play certain rhythms that might be challenging for you, or certain rhythms that you keep guessing on. You can throw the rhythm in here into flat.io. You can play it back with or without a metronome, okay? And you have a sample of how this stuff is supposed to go. Again, it's not perfect. Like you might have heard like some clarity issues right here between the A, B flat, and C sharp during playback, because it's in the middle of a crescendo. So that's a lot for this thing to do. But you're getting this for free, and you're getting so much for free. There's really not a lot to really legitimately complain about. So let's pretend this was actually a sheet of music and you needed to practice this. You plugged all the notes in, and this is too fast. You can slow this down, okay? And let's make it 60. Save. Slow this really slow. Practice it with a metronome. Play along with it and see if you're getting it right. Okay. What else can you do here? That's basically it. This is flat.io. Now, again, you need to save your work as a PDF, a digital document, and you need to send that to me. That's your assignment. Okay. Yeah. So that's assignment number 1 for flat.io. The next assignment you're going to do is you're going to get a piece of sheet music, and you're going to put in an excerpt, a segment of a song that I'm going to give you, put it in flat.io so that you know how to play that music. And you're not always playing your music along with a JW Pepper recording or a YouTube recording. You have the flexibility now. After you throw in all the note names and all the rhythms and the pitches, you now have the flexibility to practice along with this. Set the tempo, practice it slowly, and work it up faster. You have like basically a virtual teacher teaching you how to play these rhythms and this music. You want to have something to play along with, this is perfect. Okay, you don't have to wait for rehearsal to start playing your music. You don't have to wait for me to tell you how the rhythms go. You can basically read the rhythms, or have flat.io play the rhythm for you. Okay, so if you're a student of mine, go ahead. If you're a student of mine and you have a question, go ahead and write me an email on Schoology or through our district email. If you're not a student of mine and you find this stuff interesting, you go ahead and feel free to leave a comment below. So that's that. Good luck. Happy practicing. I hope you find this tool very valuable.